AI is effectively defining what we see, how we see in the newsfeed, etc. This AI is not on our side. So I do think AI is, I call it the last technology wave. We've had steam, we had electricity, we had cars, we had internet. So I think AI will be that next wave, but it's also going to be the last.
You've written the transformer paper.
Yeah, so the paper came out in 2017. It effectively lays out the core architecture that is used now across all of the modern generative AI systems. I started playing with AI, I wouldn't say, and back then it was machine learning, and when I was 14.
Meet Illia Polosukhin, co-founder of Near Protocol and CEO of the Near Foundation. From his groundbreaking work writing the famous paper "Attention is all you need" to building one of the most user-friendly blockchains in the world, Illia has been working on AI for decades. In this episode, we learn how AI can be safe, how you can protect your own data, and why Near is a key pillar in the AI segment for the years to come. So, are we currently overhyping AI, or is there actually a new layer being added to it?
I think the new layer is added, but also it's worth recognizing that everything we do in our life is already AI.
People are most likely not even aware that they are using the Near stack, but they do.
I mean, there's like 20 million users, for example.
He basically says that if we go on and we create superintelligence, and then we either die or we have a beautiful world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I think
Before we continue, I would like to ask you for a favor. New Era Finance is designed and started to educate you about the future of finance. And I think that blockchain and Web3 is going to rebuild everything that we know about finance. And that's through those guests and the in-depth conversations that we have. However, more than 80% of you are watching this without being subscribed. And if we get more subscribers and more views, and we can start building this community, we can get better guests, we can improve the content, and we can start building. And in that way, we can start educating you even more. So I would like to ask you for a simple favor to check whether you are subscribed. And if you're not, please do, so we can start and continue to build this channel towards a bigger channel to help you all. Thank you very much and enjoy the episode. First of all, welcome to the show, Illia. It feels like AI is everything at this point in time with all the big topics and Sam Altman and everything that has been happening. What has been for you the most interesting news item you've seen between AI and blockchain in the past few weeks?
in AI and blockchain,
Or
good question. I think we don't really have as much yet of this intersection working. I think the probably the most interesting been the X402, which is a protocol for payments that's integrated directly into the web. So when you open a, when you're calling an API, there's now a protocol to pay into that, which is crypto based. So that got integrated into Google's agent framework. And so now agents can leverage that. So I think that's probably the most kind of like, actually mainstream AI using something that was built by blockchain, uniquely enabled by it.
and if that is currently where we are with AI, you've written the transformer paper. That's a while ago. For people that are listening to this podcast and are interested into AI, what was the paper all about and how much has changed since you've made that paper?
Yeah, so the paper came out in 2017, and the kind of it effectively lays out the core architecture that is used now across all of the modern generative AI systems. It's called transformers architecture, and it effectively the T in GPT. It's used, in Gemini, Journey, etc. And the core architecture is the same. The kind of what took, 5 more years after is effectively scaling and making sure that you can actually build a product. So, I mean, obviously huge props to OpenAI. That's what they were working on, is like, how do we scale training of such models, as well as catching up on the hardware side. So this transformer architecture, kind of the main insight there is, how do we train and leverage AI when we have this highly parallel computing? Traditionally, when you build something, even in crypto, you're kind of relying on so-called CPUs, right? Our Intel processors, our AMD, our now NVIDIA has this GPUs, right? And there's a few other alternatives to this, which are highly parallel. Instead of having, 8 cores, 16 cores, they have, 2,000 cores, 20,000 cores. And so you build things differently for that architecture. And so that's what really transformer leverages, is kind of highly parallelization. You can think of it, I use this example from Arrival, if you watch the movie, where aliens talk in this like continuous sentences, right? There's no beginning or end. It's just like one thing. And so that's kind of how AI reads text, like with this transformer model. It consumes all of the text in parallel. It kind of understands the whole thing in parallel and kind of processes it through, thinking steps. And so that leverages the fact that it has, many, even not one, but many GPUs, and can, like, every word can be practiced in parallel. And so back in 2017, when we actually started Near AI originally, there was no hardware to do that scale that we see now, is bringing this kind of really intelligent models for. So one of the things that we did was actually doing a lot more data labeling and crowdsourcing back then. And that's how we got into blockchain. We realized we need a way to pay and do micropayments with people around the world, China, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and started researching blockchain, realized there's something to solve here. But in the case of OpenAI, they effectively have kept upgrading and scaling these models with the new hardware, trained, and obviously did a lot of improvements on the training process itself, as well as scaling, and then got to what GPT 3.5. Continue to trade it from there.
Where are we on the entire sort of adoption of AI? Because right now, everybody starts discussing AI because of ChatGPT, but it's not something new. Google engine, YouTube engine have been using algorithms or machine learning. Um, Traders have been using algorithms for like decades already. So, are we currently overhyping AI, or is there actually a new layer being added to it?
I think the new layer is added, but also it's worth recognizing that everything we do in our life is already AI. If you think indeed of Google back in whenever it started, 97, it was AI. That was their PhD. Sergey and Larry's PhD was literally in AI. It just back then, page algorithm was and like the amount of AI, for example, that happens in your feeds in TikTok and Facebook and Instagram is insane, right? It's all optimized to effectively, get you to spend more time on the platform. I think what changed with transforming models and scaling them is the so-called semantic understanding. Like most of the AI before, or machine learning, has been effectively on behavioral features, right? You watched 3 movies that I watched. Let's recommend you the fourth movie I watched. It doesn't matter what movies are those. Like, just to give you an example, you scroll through TikTok, through this video fast, through this video slow. Well, there's 100 other people who did kind of similar thing. Let me cluster you into that group and show you similar videos that group actually spent more time on. What generative AI brings, and kind of generative is probably the wrong word, semantic AI in reality, is really understanding of the content and the meaning of be that video or text or image, and using that now is way more intelligent, right? And you can do a lot more things with it. Now, I think reasoning added even next layer where you kind of so like there's this large discussion that like this model is a statistical parrot. They're like they just learn the distribution and then you tell them to like, okay, it only can answer you the things it have seen, right? And I would say like there is some truth to that because that is how these models work. It cannot like purely on itself, it cannot come up with something completely new. But you can use so-called like search algorithms, right, where you're effectively unrolling this model out of distribution and then it's able to find new things. Now, what this reasoning models and effectively how they trained is effective that is like you're starting to sample and finding new ways how you combine existing concepts. And that is how humans work, right? When we're coming up with new things, it's not like we start from clean slate. You know, if I'm writing a new novel, taking existing things and combining them in novel ways. And so reasoning in many ways bringing that as well. And there's like newer ways to do reasoning with searches and other things, Monte Carlo search, etc. So point is like I think we are at the next wave and kind of I would say there's actually been two-step functions that happened. One is the yeah, GPT moment so-called, right, where we've seen like, hey, the LLMs can actually semantically understand meaning of concepts just from effectively throwing a ton of training data at them. And then the second happened with O1 and DeepSeek R1. And it was like, hey, there's actually, if you train it in this new way, and it's possible now because it understands semantics, it is now able to search in kind of broader space, even if it hasn't seen exactly this combination. And that is really close to how we learn, right? We learn, go to school, we learn all the stuff that been before us, and then, if you go do PhD or you do art or you do something creative, like, it is all combination of all the prior knowledge. And yeah, so I think like we're getting really close to systems that are able to, and we've seen already, right, prove new mathematical things, come up with new potential hypotheses for physics, etc.
I mean, you're stupid if you're not using AI within any company that you run. Like I've got multiple entities that we run at the office here. We are starting to use way and way more of AI. But I've also been listening to a podcast recently, and I've been dying to just ask you some questions on this. It was with Roman Jampolsky. I don't know if you have heard of him before. He is an
Yeah.
AI safety expert. Um, and he basically says that if we go on by adding more input into AI, we create super intelligence, and then we either die or we have a beautiful world. So then we get past the point that the AI is learning like a human is learning because they start to learn by themselves, and then they can tweak around, and can't just keep up with the AI anymore. What's your view on that statement?
Yeah, we call it nirvana or near. Yeah, I mean, this is a very large topic, right? And so the way I usually approach it is by decomposing it into a number of smaller topics and addressing them and kind of building it up, right? Um, but I do think AI is, I call it the last technology wave. Right? We've had, Gutenberg press, we have industrialization and steam, we had electricity, we had cars, we had internet. Like every one of these effectively dramatically changed how society is organized, how we do productivity, like, GDP is effectively conditioned on that technology. So I think AI will be that next wave, but it's also going to be the last because everything after it will be done by AI directly. You don't actually need, like, I think the people like, oh, we're going to do X job, right? And it's like, well, AI can do X job as well. Like that's the whole point of intelligence. So I do think like over time that's going to happen. We are we are in an interesting, time for sure to live because we are going through this transition, and transitions are always interesting to say the least. Now, what are the things that we want to ensure doesn't happen? Well, first and foremost, right, if we imagine be that ASI or just, and I think like there's a little bit of like different things. I think individually, we actually don't want ASI. We want just kind of extension of ourselves. We want ourselves to be smarter and more productive and have an army of actually like assistants that are working on our behalf, but they don't have like their own kind of will. And then, indeed, there can be effectively a new species, right? That is like a digital side that we need to make sure is. And so, in either case, what we don't want is that there's a single company that is controlling that. And similarly, how you wouldn't want electricity to be controlled by a single company. Internet, if you remember AOL time, where effectively internet was AOL in America. And, if you want a website, you need to list it with AOL. If you want to access, you need to get AOL access. And so like AOL was the definition of this. And I think like even in a short to medium term, as we individually becoming more kind of using AI to see the world, like to interact with computing. To give you an example, right now we're already doing that through Google, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right? AI is effectively defining what we see, how we see in your newsfeed, etc. This AI is not on our side. It's actually trying to make money for those companies, right? That is its goal. And so you really don't want to live in a future where more and more of our kind of content is produced by AI that's trying to make money for someone. So this is where what we call user on AI comes in. Is like, how do we ensure that we individually actually have our own AI that belongs to us? And it's kind of on our side, it's equally distributed, equally accessible. Obviously, there's a number of additional safety questions coming from there, but that's kind of piece number one. And a lot of what Near been building for the past year is really to address this challenge. How do we have decentralized, user-owned AI? What does that actually mean? How do we build it? How do we serve it? How people can access it? Now, if we look a little bit further, okay, well, the AI capabilities are indeed growing. I think the approach of like alignment, where you effectively trying to do brain surgery to make sure the model is behaving how you want it to behave, right? I think it's kind of a losing battle. Yeah, no, we're gonna beat you up if you like. It's like you put a model in front of a therapist and you like tells therapist to find all the issues with that person, right? Like you never know what dark things are happening in somebody's head. And so the alternative to that actually is a combination of techniques that we're working on as well. One of them is this core idea that we want to make sure because AI should be user owned, it should be private. There should be a way to verify that the outcome I'm getting is from this model, this system, AI system. And so what we use right now, kind of to ensure this, is so-called trusted execution environments. So it guarantees you both confidentiality and verifiability. I know this specific model was run. It was run on my data. Nothing else was touching my data. Nothing else happened with it. And so that gives you an interesting guarantee because now you know what you're running. Like right now, there's this kind of on Reddit, people complain that, Claude is like becomes dumber between this hours, etc. Like people don't actually know what they're running, right? It can be different model, things can change under the hood, etc. You have no idea. So we actually ensuring that. So that already gives you some guarantees because like now you know what's happening. Now the model still can misbehave, and especially as we give it tools, as we give it more instruments to go and do things in the real world, it can go and do things that are against, what we want. So this is where the mathematics helps. So one of the kind of this concepts in smart contracts actually is called formal verification. This is where you verify that the smart contract does exactly, like mathematically exactly what is expected. Now, one of the challenges with that is historically has been a very kind of laborious process. You need like effectively mathematicians to sit there and like prove every line of code and kind of formalize it. And it's also the errors can occur kind of across multiple levels. And so With AI, we can actually do the proving itself a lot more effectively. That's number one. But number two, you want to do this not just on smart contracts, you want to do this on AI systems. And so to give you an example, you can effectively say, like, as I'm calling into the AI system, let's say I want to, book myself tickets to Lisbon. I add the conditions. I don't want, I want end up with a ticket to Lisbon, and I don't want anything else, any other outcomes that are um, not within my expectations. And so the system needs to prove to me that that will happen before I, for example, give it my money. So what this gives you is effectively a way to verify that the whole system, whatever tools it will use, will actually, be serving my request with the specific conditions. It doesn't matter how, right? Like I'm not trying to do brain surgery. I'm putting the guardrails around it and kind of how it's doing it. And so that is to me one of the really important parts that we need. It really combines, kind of builds on top of what we're building with kind of verifiable, because you need the container to prove it, right? Like otherwise the model can change itself and and go do something else. But you want a container. That container proves to you that, like, hey, whatever's running inside is, will follow the rules, and container ensures that it doesn't go and escape and does different things. And
If
so
you
that's really, yeah, big piece.
if you that was a very good explanation of the reasoning why we need to create safe AI. And that opens up a few questions that I think, if we look at the current scape of AI, everybody is using centralized parties like OpenAI or any other copies that are out there. And when we look at OpenAI, there is OpenAI with ChatGPT, there's WorldCoin, and he is actually trying to create some more companies. But why are people using an AI where it's unclear where the data comes from? It's unclear how it's manipulated at the other side of the AI. What is required for people to jump over towards decentralized, verifiable AI systems against like a ChatGPT?
I mean, I would say it's the same challenge that we've had with centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. It's like the centralized exchanges have been really better product, and it's more convenient. People know, if I trust DZ or Brian, like I'm okay. And so yes, there's been issues, but like the product is just like so much better. And I think the only way to compete here is really to deliver at least comparative and ideally better product. And kind of our hypothesis is to do that, like you can actually engage a broader community, right? I mean, there's a few thousand people working on OpenAI. There's hundreds of thousands of smart people who want to contribute and participate, but have no way to do that. And so the way to do that is to build an open system where everybody can participate while individually, right, all your data, etc., stays in private. And so the piece why people don't choose it is because there's actually no available alternative, right? What we've been building is going to be launching in coming weeks and months, and so we see a ton of interest already. If you think from like privacy perspective, there's obviously an individual side. There's a number of people, and I think the way to think about it, because I do get this question a lot, is like, well, do people actually prefer privacy? Like, do the people opt in into privacy or pay for privacy? Like, that's been a big question, I think, on crypto Twitter for the past few months. And the way I say about AI specifically, everybody has like privacy is not a like binary. It's actually a spectrum. And everybody is like somewhere on the spectrum, right? Like probably if you are, I mean, we tweet, we post a bunch of stuff, right? Like so, and obviously there's people who don't do that and are more private. But like we are, public figures effectively, and like all over internet from this perspective. Now, there's things that you okay giving to third parties, right? You know, and like again, depending on different third parties, right? Maybe you're using some kind of service and you're, using it to, for example, record this podcast or something else. Mm. But then there's financial data, medical data, right? You know, that whatever conversations happening at your home, like all of those things are effectively like, on that spectrum, getting more and more private, and like everybody has a line somewhere. But if you think from AI perspective, how to get the best AI for yourself, well, all that context is super useful, right? If your AI knows your medical state, it knows what you just talked with your wife about at home, it'll be able to give you a better product, better result. And so the way we think about privacy is really to deliver a better product, because we can be there with the user all the time and provide that context to the AI model while guaranteeing that there's no other party will be able to access it. There's no way to subpoena it. There's no way to decrypt it, etc. It's always kind of stays, only decryptable by the user. I think of this as this way: it's like, how do we deliver better products through privacy, through decentralization? And decentralization is a way to tap into more talent, and privacy is step into more context.
I think the comparison with Dexes and Sexes is actually great because, well, everybody wants to trade on a centralized exchange because best liquidity and all those things. Then right now we're in the middle of the new surge of decentralized exchanges, and a renewed fight of CC going for the biggest. So that's great. But then it opens up the privacy aspect, which, if you're an institution, you don't want to be on a public blockchain where everybody sees your trades. But even if you're just a retail trader, perhaps you just want to be private with all the assets that you have. And then you either want to use CK or any of those privacy concerns to shield yourself for the entire world and to, well, prove or confirm when you need to share some data. So, for instance, if the tax authorities come in and they need to check your wallet, then you can say, yes, you can see my wallet identification, for instance. That is now being built within blockchain, but how can we make sure that that is being integrated into AI, where if the AI is getting too smart, they can bypass it and just do whatever they want?
Well, I think, again, depends on the use cases and what we're trying to solve. I think if we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about, I mean, and you're very right. There's a number of reasons why people prefer sexes to dexes. We are right now in this transition period where we have, for some things, actually, the dexes are better now as a product, and we see more people using dexes and volumes going up comparatively. I mean, we'll touch on that, but one of our products, near intent, effectively, like, with the vision of like agentic payments and AI coordination, we started with very simple use case of cross-chain, actually trading, and it sees really great growth because it's a better product. It is actually unites liquidity across all the dexes and sexes. It gives you the best price across all of those venues. There's more really cool features coming as well to improve liquidity. And so I think, like, with Dexter, you can just build a better product, but it takes time and it takes like really concentrated effort to do that. And so kind of similar thing happens here in AI. It's I mean, and it's not easy to build centralized AI company, to be clear, in the first place, right? So decentralized AI company is the next level of complexity, but done right, done well, this can actually be massively beneficial because you're not constraining yourself with one company. You don't need all the resources in the world to make that happen, right? You're effectively building Snap. The Yeah, I think from a perspective like how do we ensure AI is not bypassing things. Well, this is actually where we've been building again this verifiable computing and intense framework. And so intense framework is the other component of the stack. Mm, So the way we think, and this is true in Web 2. In Web 2, you go to Google, you effectively say like, hey, I want to find a plumber, or I need, sneakers for my baby, etc. Like that's your intent. You're effectively communicating intent. Google does, search, gets some ads involved, bids your intent effectively to the highest bidder, mixes all this up, gives you results, and then you still need to go and actually find the right product and buy it, fill in all the information, use payment processes, etc. There's a whole flow that's currently happening. What we've really designed is like, well, what if we say the intent is kind of the core piece, right? And then we're gonna handle the rest, and we figure out how to plug in AI in the right places and kind of really give this framework for not just payments, but really commerce, right? Like, what is the commerce going to look? And one of the things, just like to mention, obviously for the blockchain audience, I think we all, when we see blockchain first time, we're like, okay, this is the future of finance, and this is how all the payments should happen. And then as you actually try to, build a product, like, I mean, people have tried to build e-commerce and try to build products like that, you realize actually not, because the blockchain transactions are really bad as a format for specifically commerce. Because in commerce, there's a bunch of things that happen which you need to handle, and blockchain really just doesn't give you the tools to do that, right? You need to make sure the monies are escrowed while products are being delivered. You need to make sure if something happens, there's a way to adjudicate and either return the money or kind of decide what to do. Like, what if product got lost on delivery? What if the truck got flipped right on the way on, etc.? Like, there's so many things that can happen in the real world when we're actually doing commerce. So the idea of intent is really that. It's like, how do we describe the outcome and then handle all of the logistics and complexity? And in a way, you can think of them as that actually for create a legal contract, right? So when somebody says like, hey, I want this outcome, what you get back is not just like, hey, you'll get the sneakers or you'll get some Bitcoin or you'll get, I don't know, somebody to work 80 hours a week. You're getting effectively a potential legal contract that you're co-signing with a cryptographic signature, and it settles on blockchain, and kind of payments, adjudication, etc. happens through that. And so that's actually, I think, how we, again, give AI tools to then go and interact in the way we think is the right way, including even actual regulations, because now that legal contract has a jurisdiction attached to it. Because if you touch in real world, you need a jurisdiction where you're going to be solving the conflicts. So there's a whole kind of, and then we're taking it very step by step, to be clear. So we started with crypto to crypto because there's no adjudication, right? Everything's in chain, it's easy. We have been building we had shown a demo of like buying, for example, stuff from Amazon, where you have an agent that actually goes and finds a product for you from Amazon and kind of scores it based on your preferences, and then you can actually buy it. And it will get delivered, right? So this is same architecture, right? You express intent, I want to buy, I don't know, headphones, and then AI agent is doing all the work to actually give you the options and kind of, conclude that contract, deliver it, etc., and get paid. But kind of we're working toward this like longer term vision where effectively AI and people will be expressing and doing commerce through this intent architecture.
So if we if we look at the near intents and the way you basically design the entire structure, for instance, if I'm building a strategy for my fund, then I would love to just put in the outcome and say I want to have an X percentage on a yearly basis. Just design it for me. I think that is a very complex prompt to create. But is it then a marketplace, or is it just the AI that is going to design all sort of options or provide you with all sort of solutions to get to the outcome? Or
Yeah, so
work? Because it's the inverse of what most of the AI prompts do right now.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, so the way to think about it is you, be that you as a user or your AI for that matter, expresses the intent, and that actually opens up an auction. And this auction is other AI agents effectively come in and saying, I will be able to satisfy this intent, and here's the details of how I'm going to do it. And so if you say like, hey, bid me for this yield, for example, annual yield, you will get a bunch of bids, and they will potentially like describe their strategy. Effectively, you're shopping for a fund, right? Or for
Technically,
a strategy, for a set of strategies, right? We do have, I mean, like, so one of the, just kind of as an example, using the same tech stack, right, you can actually run these agents that are managing money and actually running kind of fund strategies. And so we call them autonomous agents because they can potentially just run themselves, right? They don't actually need anyone to operate them because we have decentralized compute, we have decentralized inference. They have custody through a smart contract of assets across different chains. And so you kind of have a full stack that's fully decentralized. There's no owner, there's no master key, there's no way to stop it. So we've launched an agent called Mindshare Agent, which literally trades on mindshare of tokens. So if the token gains mindshare, it buys it. If token loses mindshare on Twitter and effectively the
Mhm.
sentiment, it sells it. And so that agent launched, we gave it $10,000. It's actually, in green, I don't know, made like three, four, $5,000 in the past 3 months. But the idea kind of is to show you that like you will have this kind of agents which are potentially either specific strategy or they continue, mining your strategies, and they can respond back to your intent as well and say, hey, I will do this. If like effectively your AI, or you can choose from the responses from effectively which agent to work with, and then you commit and kind of start executing. So that's kind of the idea, is like it's actually indeed a reverse of you talking to AI to more you finding the right partner to work with. So kind of again, very similar how Google right now works, but actually like directly go and get things done, right? Versus, go still to pages and go figure things out.
Yeah, right now there's that new feature on Google where you type in a search phrase and it just pops up an AI solution immediately. Um, how is this? I mean, there are so many pieces changing within crypto and blockchain and AI. Right now, we have the positive regulation in the US, super progressive. We see AI being more integrated into blockchain. How is that from your perspective as a founder? Is there more Web2 interest into your product to be integrated? How is it to just be a founder in this stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I would say so. We started in like on the blockchain, like we started 2017 with near AI, focused on blockchain 2018. Obviously, it was like right into the bear market, which was its own interesting times, but it was really good actually because it was very quiet in 2019. We talked with most projects within, like we have our own YouTube series called Whiteboard Series where we interview technically other founders and researchers in the space. So it was a great opportunity to learn to really build. And then as we launched in 2020, right, we kind of also had like, crypto starting to get banned and closed off. And so there was a lot of kind of complexity, just like not knowing what is right, and like not even what is right, but like where things gonna be in the future with regulations and kind of rules, right? I mean, you're following the, there's obviously moral things, and there's like things, like our values, which is transparency, make sure um, like everyone is really on board, but also kind of our value is making sure everybody owns their assets, data, and power of choice. And so, you build toward that, but then you also figuring out like, is this legal structure? Is this kind of is this thing going to work, etc. And obviously it was really hard to integrate with real world if we're talking about, e-commerce or anything like that. Things have definitely changed, right? This year, we've seen clear regulations on stable coins, right? And we see this kind of really the Genius Act compliant stable coins going to start, popping up everywhere, which is also its own interesting challenge, right? How do you, like, if everybody has a stable coin, how do you actually transact? But but this is something, again, intent solve really well. You can actually, like, I can buy something and pay my Illia USD, and you will receive Michael USD on the other side. Um, but I think, yeah, like we definitely have US being very progressive and kind of trying to limit the regulation while giving clarity. So that is massively beneficial, including, we are kind of very much like highly active in US now across the board, right? We have reopened our office in San Francisco, where we started, and kind of bringing back everybody to the office there, New York, and kind of across US. I think at the same time, there's a clarity in Europe, right? Around with Mika, I wouldn't say it's like the best regulation, but it's better to have some regulation than none. Uh, uh, and then with AI here, it's a more complicated, right? There's a lot of kind of complexity that Europe is adding right now. But actually, the way we approaching things is very much, compliant because we are privacy first. We are kind of, exactly what's run, what data went in, what data went out. It's indeed extremely useful for enterprises, and we see a bunch of interest from that because, it's more than GDPR, more than HIPAA compliant, right? You get like, effectively like as if you were running things on a local machine kind of even for governments this is useful because different departments in the government don't trust each other. I mean, naturally, right? Like police department has a lot of sensitive information. They cannot trust like IT department in the government with their data because and so we see a lot of interest across kind of this type of use cases on AI side, and then kind of naturally the crypto side again, the kind of how do we move the stable coins between, how do we cross chain, how do we bring these things together, right? Like you can indeed program our autonomous agent to be your asset manager. You can tell it your strategy and it will go and execute it autonomously, right, using the kind of intense architecture for this. So we see more and more of this, and obviously a lot of it is education as well, but it definitely flipped, complete 180 in America, where before this was, yeah, like, I mean, one of our bank accounts was closed, right? Because they were like, oh, you guys doing crypto stuff. Like, well, our US companies actually was like a software development company, right? It wasn't even doing anything. Um, and like, after that, now you have like, I was at the Salt conference, right? And there was, chairman of SEC, Fed, like all of those people were at crypto conference, right?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when we started with our companies, we have been building them since 2017. The bank hack was to not include crypto in in your name because then
Yeah.
you were actually allowed. Otherwise, they kicked you out. It was actually a weird period. But if we look at some facts within crypto and some, I would say social media and crypto Twitter can have a certain opinion, and it's still swimming around, but they stay or they claim that layer ones are not necessary. And back in 2021, we had a lot of layer ones being built up. And from the outside, it looked like everything was the same. But now we are 4 years ahead or like further down the road. And we see more specific or narrow layer ones starting to pop up. How do you see that landscape evolve over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I think the evolution here is important. I think when we started in 2018, we went and investigated effectively I don't know, dozens of blockchains, right? We talked to Vitalik and the kind of EF research team, knew Solana, Anatoly, knew like kind of learn about Definity, learn about all those things that were like still building up, Polkadot, etc. And back then, for us at least, it wasn't clear that they're gonna be a um, like a solution to what we've defined as a problem, right? Again, we came from our own use case. We were like, hey, we want to pay micropayments around the world to coordinate data labeling, data collection, kind of AI use cases. And there's nobody who was like really solving kind of ease of use for mass user. Um, Nobody was solving kind of true scalability as we saw it. And so, and obviously when you start building layer one and back then, you kind of need to be a little bit delusional that you're going to beat everyone. right? That like I mean that's a definition, right, of building that. And so I think like a lot of people started was that like, hey, there was nothing on the market and nothing that would like were in any real state of being usable at the time. And so everyone kind of was starting to build one in parallel, right? So Avalanche started, obviously, Solana, etc. And so obviously time passed, these things have launched, and now we kind of have a lot more information on what works, what doesn't, as well as we know a lot clearer what use cases we want to put on blockchain, which we don't. I think one of the other things that happened in 2017, there was, an ICO project with use case on chain. And so that kind of uh, like that kind of felt like there's going to be insane demand for whatever everything on chain, right? We're going to put Facebook on chain kind of thing. And I think like realistically we understand that's not the right reason now. And blockchain is about identity, about payments, about financial coordination, marketplaces, and everything else, right? A lot of other things that you want verifiability, you don't need to put on chain. You just use on chain as a root of trust, and then you do it in this confidential computing and other ways to do that. So I think like those are kind of two things that happened. Now, for me personally, what happened in we launched, we started to build our ecosystem, and we kind of because there was a lot of layer ones kind of coming all around similar time. What happened is we had like a very non-differentiated kind of zero-sum fights. I mean, in the sense that they're going to be a project choosing where to build, and effectively every single blockchain would bid on it and bid it up, and so now this is project that should be paying for using blockchain, right? They're getting a product out of it, but instead they're getting paid to build on it, which completely screws incentives, right? Like if projects getting paid to build on stuff, the quality of projects also drops, right? Because now they know this is like we actually had one of our teammates just for kicks to see how grant programs work in other ecosystems went and pitched a project across all the ecosystems and effectively raked up like $1 million worth of grants, right? Like that was that easy. Like there's no DD, there's nothing, right? Like people were just throwing money everywhere. And so what I really wanted is like how do we grow the whole pie, right? Not get into this like zero sum game. And so the realization on my side was, okay, well, now that we have kind of this next generation, like a number of these next generation blockchains, they're probably not going away, right? And so trying to outcompete and say, hey, all your projects need to move to my chain is just not going to happen. Like it's just not realistic. What makes sense instead is how do we actually bring the mindset that we've been building near with and kind of the idea that the blockchain should be on the back end, right? It's all about the application and the user and bring that to all chains. And so that's kind of where the idea of chain abstraction started. It's like, how do we bring the chain abstraction such that I'm the user, it doesn't matter what wallet I have. I have Bitcoin wallet and I want to use Solana application. I should be able to do that. Like it's all cryptography at the end. Like it's not uh, that complicated. I have Solana wallet and want to use near application, etc. Right, and so that's where we build kind of the chain signatures, the intents architecture, like all of the pieces really kind of are part of the stack, which allows you to come in with any cryptographic wallet and near becomes this coordination kind of plane and control plane for, again, AIs or users to really coordinate and use all chains, not just near chain. So in a way, you're right. Like we kind of specialized into a what we believe is kind of is the way to for blockchains to be kind of working together instead of against each other. And then kind of our AI roots as well, like this stack is actually very useful for AI because for AI it needs a simple API that can use any chain, any app, any asset, as well as kind of all the other stack that we've been building for verifiable computation. So to us, it's really kind of AI is going to be the ultimate consumer, right? Like because every user will have their own AI. AIs will kind of do things. There's going to be autonomous AIs, going to be company AIs. They're going to be like all kinds of things. So that's an ultimate consumer we built for them. Meanwhile, we also want to solve the immediate problem for users, which is like it's super complicated to use. Now there's like hundreds of chains. Let's solve that kind of what we call chain abstraction. And we have really cool, now we have wallets which support, hundreds of chains. It automatically top ups your gas. You can, we have applications where you can connect with Tron wallet, Telegram wallet, Solana, obviously, VM, Stellar, etc., Bitcoin. So like we have applications that kind of chain abstracted, meaning it doesn't matter, all users are welcome, and we have wallets that can let you go to any app on any chain. So we really delivered on that, and it's kind of core infrastructure for the AI as well to really facilitate that.
It's funny that you mentioned those grants because we as a venture capital are always seeing those grants with the blurbs of companies or projects. But then we started to hear about the grants that have been given by anything like the Ton ecosystem or whatever. They spent like 500 million into grants and no working product came out of it, which basically tells how screwed the entire system was back in the day.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, not to dwell on that, but yeah, it's a very screwed system and in fact, it was like for all bidding, and you kind of like you feel like you need to play that game because you're getting judged on the projects that are building on you, and yeah, it kind of like I think pulled us up. I mean, part of it was like it was hard to build real stuff because of all the like lack of regulations. Like,
mhm.
I'm a builder. Like, I would much prefer building things than doing capital allocation, right? Which, like we weren't even set up to do. And so like we would much prefer investors to do capital allocation as building stuff. But as an ecosystem, it wasn't clear where the rules are, like where you can build, where you should be like letting the ecosystem do. So I think like it was kind of combination of those things that really happen at the same time.
How do you attract developers and projects to come to you then?
So we stopped doing grants in kind of end of 23 period. We
Bear
do
market.
very, very few, very strategic investments where we see clear kind of growth opportunity, and we don't do like we again. This is something that blockchains have done where they would lead the round. Like we don't do that um, as well. So what we do is build better products and then get people to use them, right? Which is a sales motion, not capital allocation motion. So the way we approach this is like, hey, we are building the best tech for like if you want to get more users for your application, we have the best tech for you. If you're a wallet and want to offer your users the best price for trading assets, we have tech for you, right? Trust Wallet uses us, Infinex uses us, a bunch of others are using us. So like actually, there's a bunch of people already trading using near intents, like Kyber Swap is using it, Thor Swap is using it, and like some people may not even know they've been using it right already for a while. We have obviously hey, we have blockchain with all the in tech stack there. We have private AI, verifiable AI. We have kind of private user kind of storage memory that you can use for your AI and as use cases. And then we have consumer product as well around private AI. And so like it's really a tech stack and we're selling the tech stack and as a product versus, hey, here is undifferentiated block space and please use us. Right. Uh like we really think of this like, hey, we have really kind of unique like products as well as we have like really cool projects in the ecosystem that are doing things like we have Hotcraft, for example, is an NFT marketplace that's chain abstracted, meaning you can connect with Solana wallet, Ethereum wallet, Ton wallet, etc., and trade assets on Solana, Ton, etc. but in any to any, like a ton user can trade Ethereum NFTs, Solana user can trade ton NFTs, etc. Right? So like those kind of products you can only build on Near right now, and kind of that's a very unique opportunity. But also, if you are an NFT project and want to tap into all of these other ecosystems, well, Hotcraft is really your place to do that. Um, Similarly, like, for Intense, we're partnering with other ecosystems as well. We had partnership with Stellar, with Aptos, with Sui, uh, and we have more coming where we're really opening up their ecosystem to users from outside, as well as, for example, Zcash, we've partnered really deeply. Now their core wallet is using Intent to do payments. So like you can pay with your Zcash, which is shielded and so private. You can pay directly into, for things on other chains and in other places. Again, powered by Near Intent, directly integrated the wallet, really opened up kind of economy for them as well. So we're just really solving problems for people, both like on ecosystems level and on user level. And that has been so much more, I would say, clear as like how to go to market and how to bring these products to people. The private AI has been in kind of private alpha, pun intended. And we're going to be rolling this out more publicly as well. But we have a bunch of companies who are like, hey, yes, we need private AI because, for example, we have a healthcare app, right? I mean, leaking healthcare data of their users to OpenAI is literally in Europe a violation, right? And in some other states, even in the US. So they cannot actually put all of the context they want to into the AI to be able to give the best outcome to the users. So private AI for them is actually really solving their problem. Um, you know, I had a blog post about kind of robotics, right? Really important thing. If you have robots at home or in the office that listening all the time, again, you don't want to have all that context being shipped to some AI company. You don't know how it's going to used, and we now know OpenAI is actually running automatic scanners, right, and sending stuff to people and police. So like you definitely like who knows what are you joking about, and like it didn't get the context, etc. Right? So there's this use cases where we know we need private AI now, and so we're really targeting those. And then enterprises, companies, right, financial, entertainment, law, healthcare, all of them needs this.
So if someone is listening to this podcast and wants to use Near or what has been built by the ecosystem, it basically comes down to the dApps that have been built on top of Near. Then people are most likely not even aware that they are using the Near stack, but they do, or they are actively going towards apps that can build agents or anything like that for them. Is that the way to go, or?
But right now, yeah. So there's a number of apps. So there's like Sweatcoin, for example. There's a bunch of people who have Sweatcoin and don't actually realize they have a Near account and actually trading Near assets. I mean, there's like 20 million users, for example, for that. There's also this Cosmos, which is like pre-installed on your Android phone, in Europe, in South Asia, Japan, Brazil, etc. Um, the Near intents indeed are integrated in existing wallets already, as well as we have near-intents.org, which is kind of our example application for the technology. We have kind of hot wallet and hot craft and kind of the whole ecosystem of hot apps, which indeed a lot of people are already using. They started as Telegram mini app as well. And it's an example of this like really chain abstract application, leveraging near intents, leveraging chain signatures, kind of all of this tech stack that they built really amazing products on top. So yeah, I mean, there's like a whole suite of products there. The piece was like specifically private AI chat. We're going to be releasing in coming weeks. So this is going to be a product that you could use from Near AI specifically. And there like the plan is to keep adding more ability to, you know, kind of use more tools, your emails, your calendar, like because it's private and guaranteed that all your data is there, kind of we expect this to be a really powerful product over time. But as well, it's all API, so other developers can also build products on top and offer that. And then there's like a whole slew of new, we call them shade agents, which are coming, which are indeed the agents that running autonomously that you can, give you assets or give instructions and be interacting. Those are mostly still in like build up. There's few on kind of testnet. Kind of the Mindshare was the first one to launch on mainnet. But I think for that one, just keep track on kind of near protocol Twitter. I'm sure we're going to be highlighting those.
There's one topic that I wanted to address, which, I mean, if right now, if you go towards uni, one of the most popular studies is AI. But AI goes so fast that if you start to study and you come out of it, you need to restart it again. And I think, what was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, the CEO of NVIDIA started saying that we need to make AI more human and that we need to be learning that a little bit more. And right now, everybody starts to study how to write correct prompts. And that is just in a window of 2 to 3 years. What do you think is going to be the role of education? How can we make sure that that actually still has an impact?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question that I ponder. So I have a 1-year-old, right? And I'm kind of, we have these discussions. It's like, what is going to be the education? Um, I mean, obviously the school and kind of higher education is going to be different, but I agree that for higher education right now, it's really hard to build a curriculum because by the time you finish the semester, something changed, right? And so there is something that like fundamental, right? Again, and it depends what subject and kind of the trajectory you want to take. On the computer science side, there is some fundamental things, like things are not changing that, like math doesn't change that fast, kind of thing. But if you think of like practical usage, yeah, this like, how we wrote prompts 2 years ago and how we're writing prompts now is different. The reasoning models are different, like behave differently. The models themselves are starting to like differ between each other, and you kind of almost like learning a skill, how to frame it and how to use it. Um so but I think that the really important piece and always been is just learning how to learn and how to really quickly adapt to these things. That at the end is the core. I went to university in Ukraine, right? And I've learned functional analysis, which I've never needed in my life, but it's
True story, yeah.
it's more about kind of learning how to approach new things and kind of figure them out and really decompose them, study yourself, study, like find the people who can help you. So like it's really about those skills, and then that's applicable across any domain, right? And I think I mean, there's things that I wish we had more of, things like networking, right? Imagine if you actually had like a subject that taught you how to meet new people, how to connect, how to build relationships. You know, not crypto, but actual like personal and kind of, and even company finances. Like I wish I had like
Yeah.
a more structured learning. So I think there's some things that, like, again, more fundamental, that we can fill that in, and then just give people more time to spend on experimenting and doing things. I think I mean, even from my time, I really loved the projects. We built a full startup effectively as part of our class work. We actually ran it for a few years. So like things like that, that just gives you more opportunity to like apply learnings, but also like figure out what are the new questions you need. And so kind of, I think that is going to be more and more of approach across the board. And so um, with things moving so quickly, like that is the way to do it. Is like you're actually learning by doing, and then you, as things change, you kind of become more in tune with how it's evolving.
Yeah, I think education in general is going to change, especially on universities where it's very academic. And I think it's would be better to just have more of a trial and error basis where people start to learn by doing. Um, Also in the academic way or in the intelligence structure that they learn in there, that it's not only about the old data, but it's also about what's going on right now. And I think that will be a good step forward. Looking ahead for the coming, let's say, 5 to 10 years, um, do we have super intelligence, or what is going to be the convergence between AI and blockchain in that period of time?
Yeah, so we have this community that launched in near ecosystem called Near Legion, and its whole goal is to achieve a open superintelligence. Um, so I mean, the idea here is like indeed, I do think the superintelligence, we'll achieve superintelligence, and like it's not as far as some people think. It's probably further than, the optimists and closest and pessimists, um, as usual things are. But I mean, we already see like things are, for example, so I was participant in this programming competitions, and we just saw the model solve all problems, 12 out of 12 in that competition, which like humans never do, right? And it's usually a team of three people. Um, so we do have like in some areas already, like these models are kind of clearly more intelligent. And again, this is like this programming competitions and IMO before is very correlated with like raw intelligence of individuals, not EQ, but IQ definitely. um, and so I think like we're getting there. It's really about now what is the structure and system that this operates on, like how it learns itself, etc. And I think we'll, between all the experiments and things that are happening in the AI ecosystem, we'll have some of that um, kind of popping up. I think as I mentioned, like there's a number of things, the number of ways we can really ensure, think of it like Asimov laws and kind of verifiability, which I think are important. Um, but the other piece, as I said, I think we individually we don't want kind of its own super intelligence. What we want is our own, intelligence to be super, and so our augmented super intelligence. And so I think like that one as well is already happening, right? Like, we all more intelligent than we would have been like 10, 20 years ago, right? Like I can research a topic in 10 minutes. I was yesterday flying, like I was like using, AI up to the last minute of the internet, uh, as I was thinking about something. And so I think that's going to continue evolving as more context, as more, you can share with it more of your information to become smarter and smarter and more useful for us. Um, and again, it's really important just to make sure it belongs to everyone at the same time, private and kind of behaves within the given conditions. And then if we do have that, I think if there is a small number of, people or kind of even some of these models who are potentially misbehaving, like if everybody else, like I think of it as like a 51% type thing, right? If you have whatever, some amount of 50, 70, 80% of compute that are aligned, that are, open, verifiable, and on the user side, that even if there's a small amount of compute that is malicious, the others can effectively negate the effect that it's producing. So I think they're going to be an interesting, like, effects there as well. But, we'll study that in coming years.
Will we have the first one person unicorn or the first complete AI design unicorn?
I mean, I think so. Um, I think that's happening. There's kind of like few things that are interesting here. One is, I mean, and we kind of trying to do that by building the infrastructure to run this kind of things, right? Like you can actually run an autonomous business that will have contractual agreements with other businesses and with other people. So you can actually have a full AI company through that. I think the other piece is because it's getting so easy, so easier to do these things. It's also lowers the barrier, increases competition. So things are becoming a lot more personalized, right? Like before, if you want to build a unicorn, you're either targeting whatever, 100 businesses paying you like $1 million, or uh, you know million users paying you, let's say $100 a year, etc. Right? Like you kind of need to target that. Like you need to target the either small audience that pays you a lot or large audience paying you, a little bit, or like 10 million users with ads, for example, with average $10. Um, and so that's really hard because these users may want different things. This large businesses wants a lot of customization, so your costs are really high. Now it's way easier to target, like, hey, this 10,000 people has this need. I can roll out an app in like 2 days. Or this company wants, a custom solution. Well, talk to my AI and tell them what you want, right? I'll give you that. So it's kind of easier to target like just niches and get them product to this, but it means that every niche, right? Where before you might have like a good enough product for 10 million users, now they're going to be 100 products that are really good for every 100,000, right? So that's kind of like where things are interesting, because just like, and I think this is going to get smaller and smaller. Like I actually think we will have like personalized AI, like kind of our AI building personalized apps for us, where like, hey, I actually, for my business, I need a CRM that does this, I need this workflow, et cetera, et cetera. And like, you don't actually need Salesforce for that. Like Salesforce is just a fancy UI over a database. Uh, and so if you can describe what you want, or if somebody shared with you kind of some business processes and you just, modify them, added things, it can just generate you the UIs that you need and the workflows that you need. So I do think we'll see kind of like also redistribution of things uh, where before there was large margins, they're gonna get compressed as well.
I agree on that. Final question for this show. If AI or blockchain or crypto didn't exist, what would you have done?
Well, if AI didn't exist, I probably would work on AI. That's that's how I started my career, effectively. Yeah, I started working on AI. I mean, like I started playing with AI, I wouldn't say, and back then it was machine learning, and when I was 14,
Yeah,
right? And I wanted to work on the kind of neural networks. I built the first neural network when I was 14. It didn't work at all. It was complete shit. Also, I didn't know math back then. And so I went to university to effectively learn how to do that. Like studied Andrew Ng's, Peter Norvik's like online classes, did all those things. I was like, and so when I saw the neural networks actually starting to work with cat neuron, I'm like, okay, I want to do that. This is this is the thing to do. I think like if I wasn't right now working on any of the AI crypto stuff, I actually always I think like health, bio, that area is always fascinating, and I think obviously extremely impactful, right? If we can, I mean, obviously extend our life, but also improve things dramatically for people. Uh, I think my hypothesis for that always been, though, it's better to work on AI because the AI will figure it out. So I kind of always converge to like, even if I want to cure cancer, the best way for me to do that is to work on
to get
AI.
AI. Well, I think that's a good final statement for this show. I want to thank you for hopping on and being part of the show, um, especially during this part where AI is becoming bigger and bigger. I'm sure it's going to be a great and challenging period for you. I think we've touched upon it a little bit, but where can listeners follow your work or anything that Near is doing?
Yeah, so my personal Twitter is IL Black Dragon. I also have a Substack now. I'm posting more kind of longer pieces there. And then there's Twitter for Near Protocol at Near Protocol. And then learn more at near.org, kind of across products, projects, etc. in the ecosystem.
All right. Well, these are all going to be in the description. Well, good luck with everything, and good luck with the journey. Good luck and have fun with building Superintelligence. Let's just make sure it's going to be
Let's
safe.
all let's all go to Nirvana. That's a dream.
All right. Thank you very much, Ilya.
All right, thank you.